Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Director Watch, an AwardsWatch podcast that attempts to get inside the mind of cinema's greatest auteurs, explore what drives them, and maybe we go on a few unrelated tangents along the way. I'm Ryan McQuade, the executive editor here at AwardsWatch, and joining me, as always, is my co-host, Jay Ledbetter.
Ryan, buckle up. Vroom, vroom. It's time to solve some crimes. We're talking about The French Connection today.
Oh,
The first sort of culturally, well, not the first culturally significant film, but the first sort of big, successful
I was going to say
film
successful
in William Friedkin's career. Certainly, The Boys in the Band is a very culturally significant film, as we talked about in our last episode, but this is the one that kind of put him on the map. And I'm excited to talk about it. It's that we're going to get to the Oscar thing. Even I knew that this won an Oscar or two.
Wait,
So,
you did?
yeah.
Oh,
That's how big a deal this thing was.
well, great. Now I don't want to play it.
Now we got to play it.
Well, you went vroom vroom. I thought you were trying to talk about Ferrari there for half a second.
I mean, we can if you want to.
I mean, sure. You know, before we
Great
get
film. Penelope Cruz should win Best Supporting Actress.
she got SAG
in
nomination.
This Oscars. Yeah, I mean, I'm happy for her.
Yeah, you think we should talk about?
She is never bad. Never bad.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Never
I
bad.
think you're right. We're gonna wait for the guest. What do you think of Shailene Woodley, Jay?
I mean, in that film, it's a memorable performance. That's what I'll say about
Like a good memory?
it. You know, I will remember seeing it for the first time fondly because of how insane it is.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting that in the same film, Michael Mann has crafted probably his best female character ever and maybe his worst female character ever. And that's just that Michael Mann magic, baby.
That's true. We got to do Man.
I don't like Man.
No, you don't like Man? No more?
I'm out on Michael Mann.
You're out on Michael Mann? No, I think we'll go down the man hole one day.
Dude's rock, man.
Yeah.
I gotta say.
Yeah. Guy's just a really great director, just like William Friedkin. Speaking of great people, our guest today, the returning champion, maybe the potential co-host of this podcast. She's been here a bunch. But the last time she was here, she talked about her favorite movie of all time. So really, this episode is all downhill from here. And that, of course,
Yeah, honestly,
is our
she peaked.
yeah, our associate editor, Sophia Ciminello. Welcome back to Director Watch.
Hi, guys. Thank you so much for having me again. Yeah, I mean, I don't love The French Connection as much as Phantom Thread. I haven't seen it as many times as Phantom Thread, but I'm excited to talk about this one and to talk about Friedkin. I have to tell you, though, it was painful just waiting for my introduction while you were talking about Shailene Woodley because I wanted to chime in so badly and just share that she's not Jack Nicholson, so she cannot get away with that accent work.
It's true.
She's not established enough.
And let's just establish this up front. You are allowed to talk before you're introduced.
Yeah.
That is,
I wanted
Yeah.
you to, do your lead in and then introduce me. I know
No,
I'm
just-
like the co-host.
Just make this show chaos.
the one time that we have let you cook. You cooked up a freaking 5-course meal at a Michelin star restaurant.
Yeah.
I cook, it's like chicky tendies, and it's
Hey.
it's not the same thing. We're
Some
talking about
people
fine
like-
dining when Sophia's on the pod.
Hey, some people like chicky tendies, and chalky
I love a
milk.
chicky tendy, but
Dino nuggets.
the people are
Yeah,
the
dino
people are
nuggets.
coming. As a new father, I've
Burnt
got dino
pigs in a
nuggets
blanket, stuff
upstairs.
like that.
I've had dino nuggets this week,
Yeah.
and
How
those
were
are
they, Jay?
fine. But
Yeah.
look, people don't come to the pod for dino nuggets. They come for rack of lamb cooked to perfection.
They come for a wild omelet, mushroom omelet. That's what they
Mhm.
come for.
Yeah.
Some
That's true.
frog legs and other French items.
I think this week they also come for the drugs because that's
Sophia was making a nice connection to the French on that one.
yeah,
I
that's
was
what she was trying to do.
Yeah.
But I think we damn well know we're going to derail that this week because for behind the scenes folks, it's been a while since we've all recorded together. So
Vroom, vroom.
there you go. Exactly. Jay, you're right. This is one of the most influential films of all time. Definitely one of the the most influential films of the 70s. Action film. I think Time Out did a ranking list back in 2014 for when I saw, and it was ranked number 35. This movie is in the National Registry. It was on when AFI. Does AFI need to redo their list? Because it feels like it's been so long since
They do. And the fact that this is on it, but not The Exorcist, the last time I checked.
That's a little problematic.
We can talk about that too.
Sophia's showing her hand.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
She's playing her cards. She's showing her hands and putting them on the wall as Popeye's, searching her for drugs. I think,
Problematic shakedown from Sophia here.
I'm just saying, what's she really cooking?
Oh,
that's what we're all trying to find out. And
this is getting into Real Housewives of Beverly Hills territory.
Really?
We don't want to go there.
This is going to be our best episode ever.
This is going to be the best one yet. Let's just jump into it. French Connection, directed by William Friedkin, starring Gene Hackman, Fernando Rey, Roy Schneider, a bunch of others. About a pair of New York detectives who stumble on a heroin smuggling ring based in, what is that? Where is it based out of?
France?
Marseille, that's right. But stopping them and capturing their leaders proves to be an elusive goal. Jay, you alluded to this. This was an Oscar winner. Not just an Oscar winner. It was the Oscar winner. It was the Best Picture winner. Spoiler alert. It was the movie of the year. By a lot of people.
What a weird. We're going to spend 45 minutes talking about what a weird Oscar winner this was.
I mean, this is one of the weirder Best Picture winners, I think, of all time when you look back on it, because you wouldn't think it would be. It's very much of the era, right, Sophia, of these against the grain. It's why we love the 70s. These movies that won Best Picture that nowadays wouldn't even get nominated, let alone.
Is this the dawn of new Hollywood legitimacy, or does that come earlier?
What do you think, Sophia?
This pretty much is. And I mean, a huge part of this movie and of Friedkin's legacy and where he comes from really is that New Hollywood is rooted in the French New Wave. Yeah. And Friedkin was heavily influenced by the French New Wave, and specifically Godard and Breathless. So this is a really natural segue from the French New Wave to the New Hollywood boom, and that being accepted really at the Oscars too. A lot of people look at the late 60s as kind of a major breakthrough when it comes to the Academy, when we had The Graduate and Bonnie and Clyde and films like that. But 1971 is pretty key, and The French Connection is interesting because it leans into old genre tropes, thinking about noir and the cop story, but it also is using techniques that are entirely new and that we really wouldn't see until later when it comes to what types of directors were, winning at the Oscars and Best Director, or films that really would be praised in that way. I do think this is a really weird winner, though. It is. Like, if you just look across the board, like even some of our other winners in the 70s, like The Godfather and The Godfather Part 2, like those are epics. Like they're still these like very literary films, even if they have action to them. This is like a neo-noir meets
it's like
buddy
a
cop movie.
Yeah.
It has B-movie qualities to it. It has documentary feel to it. Friedkin didn't get permits for half of it.
No.
So it has this
I got some
feel.
behind the scenes goodies for this one.
I mean, it is.
This was the longest chapter in his memoir, was the French Connection chapter.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's also it's his Best Picture winner. It puts him on the map. It gives him essentially
but it is not his most well known. Like, his legacy is The Exorcist.
But in Hollywood, this is the start of. I mean, because we talked about the previous films, and this one leads right after The Boys in the Band, and it goes The Boys in the Band, The Exorcist, and then he basically gets to
right?
He gets to do whatever the hell he wants for the rest of his career after making
until
these
the
movies.
80s, when no one gets to do anything that they want to do.
Well, because the 70s and Heaven's Gate. Right? That just it's like Scorsese talked about. Heaven's Gate, King of Comedy, movies like that. killed the idea of
Popeye.
in some ways, yes. Of the idea of let's just give a blank check to a director and trust them, even though all three of those movies are great. It at the time it then started moving to the 80s, which everything was commercial. Everything needed to be commercialized. And you were either really small or you're really big. And that's how it used to be. But the 70s were like, you could be anything. You could, and this movie is so wild. Rewatching it now, because it feels like a season of like True Detective. It feels like an HBO movie.
It's
weirdly
like
enough.
the like grandparent or parent of The Wire. Like that's kind of how I would feel watching it too. Like there are these slow stretches where you wonder, like, what is happening here? How is this going to matter later on in the film, or does it at all? Like there are moments like that throughout it that I still have fun with, but that lead to these bigger, more explosive moments that are much more memorable when you're thinking about the film and its legacy.
But the movie, and this was of the time, like right around the time as well, was just a couple of years earlier in '68 was Bullitt, which is a movie that is
this is drafting off. That's the only reason this movie got made.
This is the only, and that movie was very commercial, and that was more of an action film, even though it's pretty much a similar premise of like a cop and, you know, drugs and there's car chases and everything. But this is much more stripped down and much more subdued.
Based on a true story.
So that kind of helps.
But the true story happened 10 years earlier, and they were just like, it's cheaper to do it today. So
let's just do it now. And
they were cutting corners at every turn with this movie, and it won Best Picture. It's crazy.
Well, the movie was a giant hit. Like the movie was made for like $1 million, $2 million.
I think it was budgeted at 1.5 and it went to like 1.8.
Yeah. And then
they were pissed. They were like, 250 grand over? What the hell are you doing, Billy? You'll never work in this town again.
And then it made how much?
I actually don't even know the answer to that.
75.
I do know that
75 million.
They
adjusted for inflation.
To get into the first bit of background on this,
here we go.
The day after Friedkin and the studio finally agreed on wanting to make this movie, the rights to the movie lapsed. And so they had to re-buy the rights to the movie. And they paid $10,000 and 5% of the gross. Jeez. So that guy made out like a bandit for something that he had gotten just one day before it had even like mattered. One day after it was possible to get it.
You're talking about the person this is all based on.
Some guy.
Oh, it's just some guy that had
some producer was like,
so he
I'd like to buy the
into
rights to the French Connection. So he got him for probably like $1,000 or something.
Yeah, like a song.
This script was in turnaround. It was going nowhere.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, Fox is like, we need it back. We need it back. We've got this whole thing. The gears are in motion.
Yeah, we're trying to do it. God damn it.
Yeah. And so that guy made a lot of money.
Yeah.
Good for him.
Good for him.
Well, and the fact that they didn't even want Friedkin initially to do the French Connection because of like I listened to your great primer on Friedkin on your episode last week with Josh. And it's so interesting how like certain films that he did paved the way for The Boys in the Band. But then if you look at the French Connection, those films made producers unsure if he was able to do this one. But then looking back at his previous documentary work, like that documentary on Paul Crump that he made, and then The Thin Blue Line, those, if you combine them, it's the French Connection.
Yeah, it is.
So it makes sense.
Because it's so street level, everything. And, but it's also like every paranoid thriller that comes after this. Because you have, somebody like Pakula is like, essentially like, I watched The French Connection and I love this man and that movie. Or, the Safdies have talked about how it's like Benny Safdie's one of his favorite movies is this, or
the Safdie's like a New York stripped down drama.
You wouldn't think of it
like a genre.
Yeah, it's
they like New York.
Whatever.
I don't think they would.
We don't talk
think
about
of-
them. We don't talk about them as a couple anymore. They're independent now.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I said Benny likes it. I had said nothing about Josh.
Did you guys think of Michael Clayton at the beginning of the movie when the detective is
interesting.
carrying the baguette?
You're,
That might just be me.
You're goddamn right.
I'll tell you what. I'll tell you
you're
what.
Goddamn
that
right. I
did,
did.
I'll tell you what that did make me think of is just the beginning of every big William Friedkin movie has an intro, like stuff at the beginning of the film where you're like, "What is going on?" You hear.
Yeah.
It really comes to a head with Sorcerer for me, where you hear Sorcerer and it's this like taut thriller about these guys moving dynamite in the jungle, and the first 25 minutes of that movie is background work about all these people's mundane existences.
Yeah.
And The Exorcist has some of the same stuff too. And this, you're like, we're on the
Definitely
French
The Exorcist.
Riviera. What are we doing?
Yeah.
What is happening right now? And I love that about him.
No, I love it too. But I
guy.
mean, this movie is also very influenced on Fincher and Seven. A lot of his films. The process.
Yeah, there's a lot
it's
of
a big
movies that are
process.
drafted. If you want to go down the family tree of French Connection, it's like going to whoever, Bill Parcells, and and it's like,
yeah, I was watching it, and I was just again reminded of I was like, wow, Paul Greengrass really loves the French Connection, because holy shit, those Bourne movies and pretty much everything after is like ripped the fuck off from this movie. It is insane. just the way the camera moves in front of.
That's interesting. I mean, those movies are so much glossier than this movie.
Oh yeah, but
so is every movie.
So is every movie nowadays, Jay. Like you can tell the street level, the kinetic pacing, the way the chases are set up. It's much more elevated, obviously nowadays, and like heightened because it's a big studio movie.
Elevated like the L train in this movie.
Exactly. There you go.
But I have a train like that right out of my window.
Yeah, you do.
Felt very like we might hear the sound creep in.
Yeah,
it might feel very verite, like Friedkin.
Popeye Doyle's gonna crash his car right into her window.
But, I like Sophia's point about the French New Wave. So basically, what she's saying is that this film itself is a metaphor for the drug of French cinema being transported to the United States.
Yeah,
I think that's what you're getting at.
That's
wow.
Would have never got that right.
That Sophia, I've never heard you be quite that sincere.
But Sophia, I didn't even get to ask you, just like if you're a big fan of Friedkin, or if you like, or if you've seen a lot of his films, or if he's a kind of a guy like for us that we're kind of exploring mostly through this series. Yeah, like what's your relationship with William Friedkin as an artist?
I would say I'm much more in line with you both in that I have a lot of blind spots actually in Friedkin's filmography, but the big ones, French Connection, The Exorcist, Sorcerer, even, I really love and find a lot in them just to, I don't know, want to think more about. The Exorcist is my favorite Friedkin. I think it's kind of everyone's favorite, but the interesting thing about the French Connection is I think it has to happen for The Exorcist to happen. And I find the little things in the French Connection that really connect to The Exorcist just fascinating. But Friedkin's not one of my guys, but the 70s is my time period. Like that is my favorite time in American filmmaking, in just cinema history, period. Oh, we can hear the train going by now.
I can hear it. Yeah, I can hear it.
It's like the French Connection.
I think she's heightened the gain on her mic.
I know.
Sophia, go catch it.
Just
just catch it. Get in the car. Go after it. Jump in.
I have a good story. I have a good story about that actually. But yeah, so Friedkin he's not one of my guys, but I have to say that there are few people I like listening to more than Friedkin when it comes to talking about filmmaking and talking about his own legacy and working with people and whether or not those things are true or not. I mean, just
talking about the film Drive.
Yeah. Oh, my favorite interview maybe ever. Like it's so good. And honestly, his criticism is totally warranted. But just even watching, like preparing for this episode, I found this YouTube video of Friedkin walking through like 30 years later, the train car chase scene, and
crazy.
he remembered exactly what he did at each thing. He's like, oh, this is what we did here. We set up, this is all editing, or we set up 3 cameras here. Like, he remembers so much, and there was so much like intentionality behind everything. And he, I think, takes pride in the corner cutting and the doc, like real gritty feel to his filmmaking, and that's something I really love. So sad he's no longer with us. I feel like that felt like a major loss. Like, even though he was not someone who, like, I'm obsessed with, like Altman, for instance, it felt like a big hole in people working in that time, really.
I didn't mention this last week, Jay, but going off of what you're saying there, Sophia, I feel that Friedkin is like, there are the auteurs of the era, the ones that we all know, but for those people that really appreciate cinema, sort of the like people that are like, if you want like second tier, but like a high second tier that doesn't get enough credit, but definitely is very fascinating. It's sort of an underdog of their time period. It feels like a lot of people have picked Friedkin out as that person. And I think what you're saying is true. He has become, for over the last couple of years, more of a fun personality, as well as also someone that is really knowledgeable about the past from a different perspective. And whether that perspective is quite entertaining to listen to or not is an entirely different thing. But he has a unique perspective that's different than, I think, the like Scorsese or Spielberg or others who have a more they come from a more academic, and he comes from, I think, a more of an admirer of the form and a fan of cinema. And that's where I think a lot of people can relate to it on that level, rather than it feeling like a textbook. It's
I
very
bet Michael Mann and William Friedkin would
Oh,
have just
God,
the
they would
best
have-
conversation.
that would have been the
Mhm.
best conversation ever. But that's
Couple
what I kind of feel.
Chicago boys.
It's not as like pomp and circumstance. He's no bullshit. He's just, he's just gonna say it, and he's not gonna dance around it. And he doesn't have a filter. But I think that's to his. It's not like Paul Schrader, where that filter is like, whoa, it's offensive. It's still, it's like,
Just because he
Paul,
likes
log
Taylor
off.
Swift, you don't have to think he's offensive.
Oh, we can't
we
bring
don't-
her
we're
up
not-
again.
No, we're not doing that again. God damn it, Jay.
Is Friedkin a Swiftie?
No,
Probably not.
Probably not, the way he's like just against commercialization. But
I'm
I
just
think
imagining him listening to Welcome to New York or a song like that, for like thinking of this movie and just being like,
what the fuck?
art is dead.
Yeah, and be like,
turn this off.
Turn that shit off. You know what I mean? Who sang that? Al Pacino? Anyway. But no, but he also made 2 of the most significant films of the 70s. This is one of those. The Exorcist, which we'll talk about next week, is definitely one of those. And so he gets to do whatever he wants, and we'll talk about the rest of that career over the next couple of weeks too,
Yeah.
Jay. But we're here to talk about French Connection. I mean,
Yeah.
pretty good movie, right, guys?
Yeah, it is. And I'll be honest, it's a movie that I didn't really love until this watch. I think I'd only seen it once before,
When was the last time you watched it?
years ago.
Okay.
So
Before we started hanging out?
I think so, or maybe shortly after that. But
Okay.
it was one that I was like, I mean, I get it. It kind of felt a little older to me at the time. I don't feel that way anymore. I think that,
No.
I mean, the car chase stuff is like so
This thing moves.
it
Vroom vroom.
it moves. The pacing is very much of the 70s, which is now something that I appreciate so much more than I maybe did back then. And
Jake, can I
it's
ask you
just-
something?
you can, I'll allow it.
Do you think that it's grown on you because you've seen more films probably from the 70s, like somebody like an Altman?
It might have
And
grown on me
notice-
because I've seen more films from the 2000s and the 2010s.
That's true as well. Okay.
And it's just like,
That helps
man,
as
they,
well.
they really kind of had it nailed down a while ago.
They figured out the formula and we really
Yeah.
screwed it up since. Okay.
Yeah. But that's a totally fair point too. It might just be because I'm sort of more educated on that era of filmmaking, and certainly you can just see the kind of individuality, the idiosyncrasy of this film for sure. And just reading up on it too is just so fascinating. You know who he was dating as he was getting ready to make this film?
No.
The daughter of Howard Hawks.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
That's a great bit of trivia.
And so he had dinner with the Hawks family one evening.
Holy shit. Him and Howard Hawks in a room together?
And he was he was talking about his career, asking for advice. And Howard Hawks was just like, because, to this point, Friedkin had made 4 failures, really, is what he had done financially. Boys in the Band, its reputation has lived on for sure, and it's grown in everybody's estimation.
Definitely controversial, though.
Become a very important film, but financially, failure for sure. And Howard Hawks was just like, man, you don't have that many more bites at the apple. You've got to make a hit here. And let me tell you what I think you should do. Just whatever you do with your next movie, make a good chase. That's what he recommended. Was like, Bullitt came out. This is sort of in vogue right now. And then in the words of Howard Hawks, he told Friedkin, make a chase, make a better chase than anyone has ever done. And he did, was what Howard Hawks said about it. And
whoa,
that is just the coolest thing ever for Howard Hawks to say that about your film.
Man.
And so he kind of the ramp up of this film, essentially. I will say this about the memoir. This is really where Friedkin starts self-mythologizing, where you're like,
you got quotes?
I don't know if all of this is true, but it's a great story. It's a great story. I mean, he talks about, he met the producer of this film in the Paramount steam room, and he does this big ramp up to that where he's like, Cecil B. DeMille built a barn that later became the Paramount steam room, where I met the producer for The French Connection. And then he was given the book, The French Connection, which is a nonfiction work. He says, I couldn't get through it. It was dry. It was terrible. I didn't like it. But eventually I saw kind of the bones of a movie about the thin line between the policeman and the criminal, which has become a staple of fiction ever since, and probably a little bit before too. But originally it was going to be produced by 3 sports owners who did movies as a side hustle. They were like, okay, whatever. They called him too artsy fartsy for a film like this. So that sort of fell through. The script ended up going into turnaround. It was like, this thing might never get made. And I'll tell you what was brought to him as this thing was in turnaround. Somebody thought he might be a good person to make Shaft.
You're damn right.
Imagine William Friedkin's Shaft, a seminal.
Well, isn't it the same screenwriter?
Film. I actually don't know the answer to that, but
I think it is. I think it might be.
I feel like he was maybe not the person to make Shaft. But during all this time, his mom dies, his life is in total flux. He files for unemployment, and then shortly after that, somebody is like, "All right, look, we'll give you $1.5 million for this." In his mind and the mind of his producing partner, they were like, on paper, this thing is going to cost $3 million. And his producing partner says, never say that to anyone. If they give us any money for this, we're going to say we could do it for that amount of money. And so they do. And who do they want to play Popeye Doyle? Love a hypothetical casting. First person they mention, and I'm sure this was the first person anyone mentioned during this time, Paul Newman. Paul Newman. And they say,
oh my God.
Again, I told you have $1.5 million. That is not happening.
That's his lunch budget. What do you got?
Yeah. Then Jackie Gleason is the second choice. And
that would have
the guy at Fox just says, never working with that guy again. Hate that guy, not happening.
I don't know how the chase sequences would work with Jackie Gleason, but okay.
Yeah.
The next guy that
this might still be going right now
is Peter Boyle. Of course, Young Frankenstein.
Everybody loves Raymond.
Everybody loves Raymond. And he turns it down because he's like, I want to be more of a rom-com guy, is the way that Friedkin puts it anyway.
What the hell?
And so he turns it down. And then the next person that Friedkin recommends for the role is a journalist who has never acted before in his life. But he's like, he would understand the street level stuff of this movie. And they start doing rehearsals, and he's unreliable and all this stuff. And it just really doesn't work out. And eventually he quits, which was actually fortunate. And then the studio brings up Hackman, and Friedkin is not stoked on that whatsoever. They go to have, but he's like, okay, we're late in the process. The thing is going to have to get rolling soon. If it's not Hackman, the movie might not get made. So they go to lunch, and he said, he seemed humorless. I almost fell asleep at the lunch, which, to be clear, they never worked together again. So I don't think this was like the most phenomenal working relationship in the world, but
You don't say.
Friedkin's producing partner, he was just like, dude, he's the only guy, or this movie's not getting made. So just go with Gene Hackman.
It's almost like you've got a star here. You need to get it done. Otherwise it's not going to happen.
No, it's not even that. It's not even you have a star here. It's you have a person in front of you.
You have a body. Yeah. That wants to do it.
You have a body. And that's the only way this movie is going to get made. And he, has a lot of respect for his producing partner. And he's like, you know what? I owe this to you. We'll do it. And he's cheap, and we were out of time. So they hired him, and, he ends up getting the job. And then they start filling out the supporting roles. And this is just so funny. So one, Roy Scheider never read for the role. He walked in the room, and Friedkin was like, oh yeah, you fit the vibe. You're good. He's
Roy Scheider always fits the vibe.
Yeah, I don't like people reading for me. I just kind of go by look and feel, and I figured he was good for it. And then they start casting some of the foreign actors for the French roles, and he has some people in mind, and he's like, oh man, I want the guy from such and such movie. And the casting guy is like, okay, I'll totally get him. And Friedkin is like, I don't even need to see him, just hire him. And so he goes to pick up the guy who plays Charnier, Fernando Rey, at the airport, and he sees him, and he just thinks to himself, that's not the guy I was thinking of. Who is this guy? I have no idea who this is. And he talks to him, and he's like, oh, you were so good in such and such movie. And he's like, I wasn't in that movie. It was the wrong guy. They just gave him the wrong guy. And he was like, oh, by the way, I'm Spanish and not French. This is so interesting that you decided to cast me for this. I don't really speak French very well. And the guy that he wanted, he told the producer, get this guy. And the producing partner, according to the book, said, okay, William, what do you want me to do? And the book says that Friedkin said, I want you to kill yourself, but first I want you to get me this actor. So
I need to read this book.
Man,
it's a really good book. The Friedkin connection,
the body count on this thing.
It's a breezy read. And then Fernando,
a summer read for all of us.
Yeah, Friedkin said, this guy, he's sort of like he's kind of like he's guy's been on a boat all his life. He's kind of rough and tough. I think you're going to need to shave your goatee. And Fernando Rey is just like, no, that's not going to happen. I've got a bad chin. That's just not going to happen. So he sort of turned into more of this aristocratic, hoity-toity drug dealer than the guy in real life, which I thought was very funny. And it's just, they were cutting corners the whole time. Apparently Hackman was terrible at first. And the way that Friedkin describes it was, I had to get this anger out of him. So I ended up just making him channel all of that anger through me. So he just tried to make Hackman's life hell as they were making this movie, so that he could be the real Popeye Doyle. And he goes on to say, Hackman, one of the greatest actors of all time. I want that to be clear. I'm not saying I pulled this performance out of him or anything, but in this particular environment, maybe it had something to do with him being his first huge role. Hackman was really resistant to playing this racist, awful guy. He really just didn't want to do it on a philosophical, moral level.
Yeah.
And it's just a fascinating production. I mean, there's one point when they were wondering, can we get on the railway? How is that possible? And this is one of those stories where it's like, I don't really think this is true, but it's a great story. He claims that he went to the head of the transit
Like the
workers or
MTA?
whatever. Yeah.
Oh my
And-
God. Sorry, that's so funny.
And he was like, okay, what will it take for us to film up there? I know it's a big ask. And he says the guy said $40,000 and a one-way trip to Jamaica. And he's like, okay, that's fine. But why do you want a one-way trip to Jamaica? Because when I let you do this, I'm going to get fired. And so he gave him the $40,000. The studio supposedly signed off on it, even though they were already over budget. And we got the greatest chase scene of all time, at least to that point.
Yep.
And I mean, there's plenty more stuff. I'm just rambling at this point, but it's just incredible
We're letting
stuff.
Jay cook tonight.
No, I love it.
He's the best. I mean, Friedkin he's honestly got a lot of regret about it. He does say, I put people's lives at risk. And
yeah, but I mean,
it was messy.
It was worth it.
At the end of the day, maybe it was. I mean, nobody died.
I mean,
You know, it's kind of like
he won
Mad
an
Max
Oscar.
Fury
Who
Road.
cares?
What Soderbergh says about that movie, where he's like, I don't know how they made that movie, and I don't know how 50 people didn't die making that movie.
Well, there's a whole book about how they almost killed each other. Kyle Buchanan's wonderful
yeah.
book.
And it's then at the end, like the studio said, we don't understand the plot of this movie. And what does any studio say when they don't understand the plot of the movie? What do they want to put in?
They want to put in a different ending.
Narration.
No. Oh, narration.
narration.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, it's either one of those two things. I think they want to
And
change
so-
the ending, or
Yeah.
they want to put in narration. Which
And
I could see that them wanting. Yeah, that's probably what is that, like the Blade Runner thing, right?
the Blade Runner thing.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
I'm not being.
And-
That's not a joke. Like seriously, that's what they did. Because
No, that is
Yeah.
exactly what they did. I
Yeah.
mean, that's probably
well,
the
I don't
closest
want-
comparison to this. And Friedkin, Hackman's agent was Friedkin's old agent, and so he said to the agent, "Can you please just do me a favor and say that Hackman is unavailable for the next year, so that he can't do that." And the guy was just like, "Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, sure, I can do that."
That's totally fine." And then the film is done. People are asking him, internally, what do you think about this movie? And he was like, man, I think we might have gotten away with it, but don't get your Oscar speech ready or anything.
And then he has to get his Oscar.
Lo and behold, we got The French Connection. And it's a great film. And I haven't even talked about what I think about the film yet, but I also need to shut up and let somebody else talk after this.
Ernest.
No, I love the stories though.
Yeah. Ernest
Great.
Tiedemann.
Freaking rocks.
Ernest Tiedemann, who is the screenwriter on this film, The French Connection, he did also write Shaft and Shaft's big score. So there you go. Yeah,
Imagine if William Friedkin directed Shaft.
Then Shaft would be Best Picture.
It's a great what if.
You never know.
It is one of the great what ifs. And you know what? One of my favorite things about this film
Gene
is,
Hackman as Shaft? What?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
One of my favorite things about this is that The French Connection 2 was
Oh my
directed
God.
by his mentor, John Frankenheimer. And John Frankenheimer offered him second unit on a movie, and Friedkin decided he didn't want to do that. And all of a sudden he's second picture to his movie. I mean, look, Frankenheimer rules as well, but that's just kind of something coming really full circle. I've never seen French Connection 2. Anybody seen French Connection 2?
I have not seen it, and I pretend
it's-
it doesn't exist.
Yeah, it's one of those where I hear people do like it, but it's
Yeah.
not to the level of
No.
this movie. And there's no need to, for me, there's no need to. And also, that whole movie story is a fictionalized story. It is not a continuation of the original story that this movie is depicting. So therefore there's no point. If anything, that feels like a studio trying to get a cash grab, because Fernando Rey and Hackman are the only ones that come back, and that they're trying to just wrap up the end of that story, because this movie does have an ending that is not as tidy and satisfying, even though audiences love the shit out of this thing. It's not
Right.
It's
got
not a tidy
that
ending.
ambiguous ending.
Yeah, exactly. Like
Until
you
it
think,
kind of doesn't with the after credits.
yeah, the
Yeah.
after credits. But
I want to talk about that at some point too.
well, let's talk
If
about
you
it
guys-
now.
Yeah, if you
Well,
guys
can I
like
talk
that,
about the original ending that he had shot?
yes,
I thought
because
you
I
said
have-
you were going to be quiet. No,
I
I'm
have
just kidding.
thoughts. I have thoughts on just in general, like how I felt when I first saw the ending and how I feel about
Yeah.
it now, and the fact that I think a sequel just completely negates that dark, nihilistic 70s ending that we get. And that's why I'm hesitant to watch it. But I want to hear the trivia
Yeah.
and
Come
the
on.
background.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
what's
mean,
the-
it is kind of one of the early examples of this movie doesn't need a sequel, but it made a lot of money.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but there's so many of those in the 70s and 80s that happened.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
Mhm.
there are.
Like,
There
it's
are. And
like
I'm sure there's
the
ones
Sting-
before too that I'm not thinking
Sting
of.
2, right?
Oh,
Or like
I
Caddyshack
forgot
2,
about
or
that.
or the
Oh,
fact that
God.
there's like a ton of Exorcist movies and they're never as good as the first one.
2001 or 2010.
Yeah, the 2010. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many fucking movies that are like that.
And look, this is IP. It's based on a book.
There you
So what separates this from the Avengers? Really? But the original ending of the movie was he was trying to channel Fellini or something.
Yeah.
And his whole
Okay.
idea was after he found out that he killed the Fed, it was going to cut to him in this abandoned room with all these other versions of himself running towards him, and then he would be shooting them. So Santa Claus Gene Hackman was running at him. Gene Hackman in the Fernando Rey makeup was coming at him, and he would shoot him. On and on, and he was like, "This might work in a Fellini movie, but this does not work in my movie."
Thank you. At least he figured that out. Good Lord.
And him killing the Fed at the end, that's fictionalized. And he also claims, and this is another one of those stories where you're like,
Well, yeah, it's fictionalized because then the guy wouldn't be his captain
Right.
in the movie. Jay.
No, I know. But he said he was apparently having a conversation with the real Popeye, and they were just talking about the guy that was matched with him. And he said, "Man, if I had had my opportunity, I would have killed that bastard." And so Friedkin was like, "Okay, that's how we're going to end the movie."
Well, isn't there a story too that during a screening, the guy who is shot in the movie, the Fed, he like stood up during the screening and was mad
Yeah, he
that
sued
his
them.
character
He
was killed.
sued
Yeah.
them. Yeah.
Yeah. But that guy was annoying. you
He
know.
was. And it's funny how it kind of turned like the whole thing with this movie, right? And how you're supposed to feel about Popeye as a character is really interesting, and just like
Yes.
tracking how you feel about him throughout. And then when he kills the Fed at the end and just doesn't really care, it's a twist on that and how you've been feeling about him the whole time. And the thing that I like about Hackman in this part, because I mean, aside from Hackman just being, I mean, you had me on to talk about Daniel Day-Lewis last time, and now we're talking about Gene Hackman. It's like the jackpot of great actors. But
He's kind of my Daniel Day-Lewis. I love Gene
He's
Hackman
incredible.
so much.
Oh my
He's
God,
one of
me
the
too.
greatest actors of all time. It's not even a question.
No, and his strength as an actor, I think, is like his authenticity and his sometimes like warmth that will come through in certain parts. So when he's playing a villain or a character that is like Popeye, that what you already know about him, that's turned against the audience in the film. So he's, you know, throughout the film, like breaking the social contract, and he's abusing his power, but there's still something to him that has you rooting for him and that makes him likable, even though he's awful. And this is again like this time in 70s cinema. This is like the Michael Corleone time when we're getting that kind of anti-hero character. He's not a romanticized version of a cop
Taxi
that we
driver.
get. He's different. He's much more complicated than that. And that's powerful. That's very, very 70s. And I don't think this movie also can achieve it without Hackman. So it's like thinking about those other casting choices, like they don't have the same gravitas that Hackman does, while also he always has the ability to play the everyman or the more ordinary type of man in a film.
Yeah, I mean, Doyle is this street level thug, cop, racist, single-minded individual.
Ego. Like
he's busting you up and getting an extra kick, and he's laughing about throwing a guy in jail, and he's the one that's going to write up the paperwork and everything, while his partner is literally bleeding from the arm. But I think you're right, Sophia, is that we could feel absolutely like this character is a monster, but then we have to follow him as our protagonist. So there is that, what we see in a lot of shows, like I was thinking of something like I mentioned earlier. I was thinking like True Detective, and the whole form of that, right? Like of McConaughey's character in that first season, right? Who is this guy? Nothing but like a wild card, a giant piece of shit when you really like examine the character. But he is our lead detective, and he is the one that is trying to break the case and get these really, really more dangerous bad guys out there. And there's so much about it too that we know as Hackman, as an audience, of seeing all of his films. So maybe of that time, the audience had to build that relationship. But with us now, we have the career of Gene Hackman, and you watch this, and this is, spoiler alert, this is what he wins Best Actor for. But then it is, I think, also just a great mirror to what he then wins Best Supporting Actor later in his career with Little Bill in Unforgiven. Two men of the law who are completely making up what it feels like their own set of rules within the game that they're playing. And I absolutely love that. And he feels like he at times is having fun, but deeply frustrated within the process as well. And I mean, Schneider is essentially he is the straight cop here, and by the end of the film,
he's the virtuous.
He's the one
he
by
wants
the
to
numbers.
Go home. He wants to go to bed.
I don't want to go for a drink. I don't want to go out to a bar. I thought we were here to get a drink. No, we're actually to our next case. And there's never a moment like Schneider wants to go home. Doyle, on the other hand, Popeye, he is always going to the next case, which is funny because then like just a couple years later, he's in the conversation, and it's just a completely different also side of this
conversation. What's the best Hackman? I think it's the conversation.
I think it's the conversation.
I think that's in the running for one of my favorite like performances ever on film. Him in the conversation.
I need to watch that. I saw him with headphones on in this movie, and I was like, I need to watch this conversation.
When he put I was like, shit, I need to watch that. No, but I do want to push back a little bit, because I did put this at 4.5 stars. I think this movie is incredible, but it's not a 5-er.
No, I don't think it's
because
a 5-er
because I think the ending, it does abruptly end too quickly, and I do think that's
a 70s movie, man.
I love the ending.
No. He shoots him, and then I'm like, okay, the movie's got probably 10 more minutes, and they're gonna say something more and everything. It's not the flashcards. It's not the ambiguity of him running out of there. It's the fact that he does probably one of the most interesting things for that character in that last 2 minutes, and then we don't get to explore any of that with that character and any of inside. And I think that's a product of later in the decade. If they made this movie, I think we explore that a little bit more with that character, and I think we get a little bit more. I think you think of the conversation, just the way that movie ends, right? And how everything
you're treating this movie like a prestige picture. This is a genre movie that just happened to become a prestige
I understand movie. That, but in a genre movie, they would still they wouldn't have the rest of that ending, right? It would be more wrapped up in a better bow than what it is, I think. And I think that, I don't know, there's something about, I like certain aspects of it, and there's something where I think that a little bit of the fruit is left on the vine. That being said, this movie moves at such a confident pace. Jay, you're talking about, I mean, I could watch that chase sequence over and over and over and over again. It's so well constructed, and all the cuts, all the different shots that he's using, I was seeing movies that I've seen my entire life.
Yeah.
There's a moment where he's got the camera mounted up on the front of the car, and it's moving through traffic.
Oh my God.
And it was reminding me of like shots and like it was reminding me of shots in every car chase scene, but then there's like shots that was reminding me even of something like in like the Batman movies that Nolan did. Or there was moments that reminded me,
except the difference is the tech didn't exist yet.
Well,
so these guys were putting their lives on the line.
No, I know, but then
insane.
But then I was thinking back to what Spielberg was mentioning, that Munich was such a big influence. The French Connection was such a big influence on Munich as well too, and you know, I was thinking a lot about the two Greengrass films, Ultimatum and Supremacy with the Bourne franchise. I was just thinking about a lot of movies, and then I was just thinking about how, like you just said, Jay, that this is revolutionary though in the moment. And then I was thinking about Scorsese and shots in like Taxi Driver and Raging Bull, and I almost feel like at times here that I was the street level conversations or the intimacy within the characters. For Coppola, for example, you know, later on uses similar shots and angles. Like it feels like a movie that your friends or your acquaintances start to steal from for their various films. And yeah, I understand why it became such a hit and why it won, because people probably, it's different than watching Bullitt. That feels so produced. This feels
Hollywood.
Yeah, that feels so shiny. Now that's not to say Bullitt's a fantastic movie. But
Spielberg making that Bullitt sequel, is that a thing that's happening?
Yeah, with Bradley Cooper.
Isn't it just like a remake, or is it a sequel?
You know, I don't know anymore with like sequel, requel, remake.
You know what? I don't give a shit.
Cooper gonna wear the nose?
You know what? It's actually what he's gonna drive in the movie.
Vroom,
vroom, vroom.
Excuse me. Vroom, vroom.
Yeah.
Speaking of vroom vroom.
That was not your best joke, by the way.
No, it was
one.
I don't.
It was pretty funny.
It was bad. It was
actually.
Sophia, you can say it was bad.
Yeah, Sophia, it was not good.
It wasn't great. Before we get to the ending, though, let me go back to the ending before I talk about the car chase. I'm curious, like Ryan, now that I think about it, I do agree that I think it does like end really abruptly, even though I love the ending, because I like the existential piece to it that feels so 70s. Like I almost wish that we didn't have those cards. Like it just ended with the gunshot and that was it. Like I feel like that's kind of what I crave from these sorts of 70s movies. Like not the card that's like, oh, the TV personality ended up serving the most time and Charnier got away. Like I get why they did that, but I kind of wonder what it would feel like when I think of like my favorite ambiguous or just mean 70s endings.
Yeah, it's nasty.
I think of like The Conversation, like that one is brutal. Chinatown. So I'm like, if a director like Polanski or Coppola, someone who had that kind of like dark polish to them, made this, I think we might get an ending that felt a little bit more complete in a way, which still has traces of this one. But yeah, this is such a it's like a B movie in a way, but it has Melville at the end. It's wild. It's just such a strange
the one thing about the cards at the end, it was a true story.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the
so we can't really but the aspect I'm talking about is an addition. So you're right. You're right. Yeah.
You're correct.
And so if you're gonna do that addition, it's a great addition. Don't get me wrong. I for the story he's trying to tell.
Killing the guy that's kind of the
that's
juice.
great. No, it's I'm like, yes.
But you want more on the juice.
I was like
there.
Yeah. I was like, holy shit. And maybe it's just like you don't need title cards and I don't need another scene with him. But I think maybe Sophia, you're right. Instead of him running out the door and you hear a gunshot, you go like maybe you're just Roy Scheider going like, you killed him. And then you flash to the cards or whatever. And that's maybe
that
how
just
it
made
ends.
me think of
What?
in Oppenheimer when Einstein talks to him at the very end.
That
I believe-
rocks.
I believe-
You
yeah.
are not gonna degrade that moment.
No.
I'm
is
not
the
degrading
best.
it. I'm not
No.
degrading
It's
it.
the
I
best.
just saw I
Um,
saw
It's like-
Hoppy again in
Oh
the
my
theater.
God.
I'm so sad.
I
saw-
I'm never
I
gonna
just
get
saw-
to see that movie in the theater again.
Jay, I just saw Hoppy again too.
You'll get to
with-
see it again. They'll play that and they'll play that.
Yeah, one day. I don't live in New
They
York
won't.
like you.
They won't play it with a live orchestra.
I'm seeing the Prestige on Friday.
Oh, talk about an ending.
Yeah.
Not as
We'll
good as this
see.
one, though. No, but I was thinking a lot about, like, when I was watching this ending, I think this ending clearly walked so then Fincher could make the ending of Seven run. It feels very,
I mean,
that
I
feels very,
think
it's much more heightened and everything, but I was watching, I was like, oh, okay.
It definitely draws out the drama
Yeah.
more, but I
Yeah.
think that's
I was
part
like,
of the power of
but
this
see, that's the
ending.
difference. I wouldn't want like that kind of a dramatic ending for this.
Popeye's dismissiveness of that moment is kind of the point.
Yeah, but it's just like I would think I would just like to, we see Scheider and he goes and he says you kill him and like Popeye's frustrated or angry, cut, and then you could do your, Law and Order credits at the end or whatever the hell that they did there, and then
It does.
and then
feel
that's
like
how it
Law and Order.
goes. But like that's how it should end a little bit. I'm not saying cut like 20 like 10 seconds out, but like I just don't want to add more because you're right, that's not what this movie is. But I feel like that's kind of how some of these other scenes ended, where he's frustrated at the end because he keeps getting the short end of the stick. And the moral of this is like he's going to get reassigned at the end because one, he shouldn't have. I mean, the corruption's going to win out, and the system is always going to win. It's a very cynical ending, cynical cards to move them away. You know what I mean, from this division. But yeah, he ultimately does fail.
And it's just going to keep bothering him. And that's what I also love about that last section is that you have a moment where he thinks he's won. Like
Or
he
where they
does
drive over the.
He does.
Yeah,
Yeah,
where he's like-
that part rocks.
God,
It's
and you're
so
just
good.
like, oh, this is done. You can go drive back. It's over.
And then everything falls apart right after it.
Can I
It's
talk
just like
about-
it's this vicious cycle for him.
I want to talk about my favorite scene when they're dismantling the cart of trying to find the drugs.
Oh,
And
it gives me
I'm going to
such
go out
bad
on a limb and say
anxiety.
that my favorite scene is the car chase.
no, I mean you can have that.
I love the subway scene when
subway scene's
they're-
good too.
Yeah, that's
Playing
when they're
back
going
and
back and
forth.
forth.
Cat
They're
and,
playing
Yeah.
little cat and mouse there.
Mhm.
Yeah, that leads up to it. Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
that is
that's great.
great.
But no, I love it because one, I love that sort of like it's the process.
Yeah, the
right.
process
It's what
is
we
good.
love.
When they're like,
But
what
then
the hell?
it's-
You didn't do this one thing?
Yeah,
It
and
just happens to be the thing where the place where it is.
the finding out about how much the car weighed before when they brought it in to how
Yeah,
much it weighs
that
now.
rocks.
It's like shit like that.
Mhm.
Just like
I
talk about
love
rev
that
my
bit.
engine. God,
I love
yeah.
Scheider, man.
Oh, he's so good.
One of the
And-
all-time great noses.
Yeah.
Just while
He's
we're
right
on
up there
it,
with Cooper.
right up there.
Could he would have totally played Bernstein. He could have. Yeah. He could have actually been really. No, I'm not joking around. I think he would have been really good.
Well, he had all
Different-
that jazz. That was his.
That's
his,
yeah. There you go.
Scheider, I mean, as sort of far as he fell off, he was in some absolute all-timers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's in the he's again in the fabric of cinema. He's in this.
He's in a little movie called Jaws.
Jaws.
I don't know if you've heard about it. It's pretty big.
Is he the closest thing to a lead that movie has, I guess?
Yeah, he's the lead. I would say.
Yeah, I
For
think
real.
so.
That movie is a lot through his perspective and his family's perspective. Right? At least the first half.
Yeah,
movie.
and Jaws is just interesting because the other characters are like you remember them. They're so alive, I think, compared to him. But he's
Yeah.
like who you're
He's kind of a vessel.
seeing everything through.
Yeah.
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 But yeah, no, I love Scheider. One of my all-time favorites.
God. I mean, just
And-
looking at his top movies here, it's just more remarkable.
All That
Jaws,
Jazz is
The
like
French
my
Connection.
favorite movie ever.
I mean, he's not really in Mishima, but they list him as in Mishima.
Yeah.
I had a
But-
question for you guys also in
Include
talking
too.
about the car and the
include.
process and everything. So one of the taglines for this movie when it came out was Doyle is bad news but a good cop. And I want to ask you if you think that's true. Is Popeye Doyle good at his job?
Oh, well, clearly,
That's a great question.
Look at how his job is to strike fear, right? He's more of a street level guy.
The man loves collateral damage, though.
Yes,
is kind of the
yeah.
He is a low priority on the totem pole of police officers.
He's a headline. He's a headline grabber. That's what I'd call him.
Yeah, he's definitely that. I think what he is aspiring for the big break, right? The big case, right? The big crackdown, right? Because that's what this whole movie is, and you realize that that's not what he's actually good at. He's good at finding the little bag of whatever and busting a guy for that. And he's like the little nickel and dime things. That's what he's good at, because that clearly is what he strikes the fear at. And it's also against the disenfranchised, and it's also against people that he can clearly wield power over. But when he is up against powerful people, he is not necessarily the best at it. But I think that that's also part of it, is that the system would be bigger than probably most people, and most people in his world wouldn't chase after that. They would be what his partner is, which is essentially content with clocking in, getting the guys, they've got the pills or, a little bag of weed or whatever. Love it when he makes that little milkshake, when he's like, anybody want a milkshake? Yeah.
And puts it all in the beer.
He puts it all in the beer and shakes it up, because that's what he's good at. He's good at getting like the street level information. But when it gets to, I think, a bigger level, he's bigger than that. So yes and no, I think is the best way to answer your question.
What I would say about him is he's good at accomplishing the big picture at the expense of the details. So
that's a good way of saying
he's very single-minded. And that's where Friedkin's idea of this fine line between the criminal and the policeman comes into play, where there's very much this proto-heat thing where it's like they're kind of like the same guy, and they have an incredible amount of respect for each other because of their craft, because it is so similar. But in this effort to get these drugs and kill the hitman and all this other stuff, there's a lot of people getting hurt along the way, and he's not afraid to abuse his power and treat people poorly and be this vehement racist, although in the edited cut, not as racist. So congratulations to him.
Is that in the Disney Plus cut?
Whatever it was something. I don't know. It's not even worth talking about.
Wait, where did you watch this on?
I've got the blue.
Okay. Right.
So I saw the original version, but it is weird. It's one of those things where if you're like, the original version is the only way to watch it, and you're like, what did they cut out? He says the N-word, and you're like, okay.
No, I saw that in my version today, so I guess
I believe that's what is cut out. I can't remember. I didn't re-look it up, but if you're like,
that wasn't in your detailed notes,
it totally changes the movie. And it's like, I mean, it's kind of weird that like that is the thing that really is like, it totally changes it for you. But no, but he at the end of the day, if you ask the question, did he accomplish what he wanted to accomplish? Yes. What happened along the way? A bunch of bad stuff.
Yeah.
That is the Popeye Doyle story.
Yeah. A bunch of bad stuff too there's like the shot of like the bodies on the ground, and I just think of every time I watch this movie, I'm kind of it's just wild how the chase begins about a woman with the sniper rifle, and the woman who's like strolling her baby along, and she just gets literally shot.
And then there's another moment during the chase where there's a woman in a stroller,
and he almost runs her over.
Yeah,
that's my favorite Friedkin story about the making of all of the making of the chase scene, is how they put together that edit of the woman at the crosswalk. And again, if you go on YouTube and look this up, Friedkin reenacts it from the woman's perspective and talks about the zoom that he used, and you get
I
to
mean,
see it.
he's an ally.
So funny.
And yeah, I think I think they sped up the film for that sequence so that it was feasible.
Yeah.
And I think they do those tricks a few times in here in the same way that George Miller did in the Mad Max movies. Although it's a lot more seamless in this movie than it is in the Mad Max films. I think those films you're really like, okay, I can tell when they're doing that. And in this one, I don't really feel like that's the case, but
Well,
it is just a movie that feels so real, I think, in many ways. And I think the real magic of the movie is the efficient characterization. We get almost no background with these guys, and yet we still have a complete understanding of who they are. You know, Popeye is a guy who will get handcuffed to his bed by a woman who is way out of his league, and then let his partner come in and see all of it. That's Popeye Doyle, man. He's a hell of a guy.
It is really efficient. And I think some of that too is just it's Friedkin's experience with making documentaries. It's almost like when he's filming, nothing feels staged, everything feels captured. It's like very live and frenetic. So it's like when you're observing people in that way, the things that you learn about them feel more, I don't know, organic and a bit deeper than if something, feels like more, I don't know, constructed, and it can feel false sometimes in that way or too planned. And with Popeye Doyle too, I think where he lives is really just odd when we see that he lives in like low income housing. Friedkin wanted him to live there, so it would feel like and look like a prison that he needed to constantly like feel like he needed to get out and just be moving and getting out of there.
He didn't care about that.
No, and I think another thing about the chase scene a story that I loved again, where it's like, is this real? Is this not real? Friedkin, what are you saying here? Is that the moment when they realized that they were going to use the car and that the car was going to race the train, he asked someone who worked for the MTA, how fast do these elevated trains go? And when the person told him 50 miles per hour, he said, okay, we have a chase scene because I can get a car to go faster than 50 miles per hour so they can race.
Okay, so he's telling the same stories all over the place. Got it.
All over the place.
Yeah. he's a hilarious guy. I mean, it's and also the flourishes of this movie. I mean, you Ryan, you kind of mentioned him as sort of this like no BS guy who's just trying to come in and get the job done. From a technical perspective, there's stuff being done in this movie that's never been done. He's a real craftsman. And, I mentioned the people who were originally going to make this movie. They were like, oh, this guy's too artsy fartsy. What's he talking about? This is a guy with a singular vision. And that's why this movie resonated as much as it did, was because, one, it combined kind of what people were looking for in a movie. And two, it did it in a way that nobody had ever seen before. And Friedkin is a revolutionary in a lot of ways, and his movies have only kind of grown in notoriety and critical respect as the years have gone on. And this is the crazy thing, is this is kind of the start, and then he keeps ramping up, he keeps leveling up. He goes from Pikachu to Raichu, as some people might say. He goes from Squirtle to Blastoise. And we're going to see that over the course of the next couple movies we talk about.
Yeah. Jesus. Good job, Jay.
Who's your Pokemon? Like, who's your starter Pokemon?
Really? We're going down that one tonight?
Yeah. Let's do it. Squirtle.
I don't know enough about Pokemon.
Bulbasaur and
Charmander, right?
Charmander. Yeah.
Charmander.
Who's your guy?
Wait, what was yours? Bulbasaur?
I was always a Squirtle guy.
You're a Squirtle guy?
Yeah, because I thought Blastoise was the coolest. It was a turtle with cannons on his back.
I mean, yeah, that's fair.
That freaking rules.
Well, it came out, the game came out in like those three forms, right? Like if you buy those as like the starters.
Oh,
right?
yeah, that's right.
I guess so. I mean, like,
Later
I
on,
like
you could
I like
choose.
Charmander, I think, with the fiery tail.
Like the little dragon with the
I feel like that
fireball
would
tail.
be me.
Charmander
Yeah.
Char. All right.
That means, Ryan, you're Bulbasaur.
That's bullshit because I was always Charmander. All the way. Would never be Bulbasaur. You freaking kidding? That's an insult.
I don't know what this means.
Yeah. We'll get you a whole chart. We'll figure it out. It's, it's like,
Great.
it's like, which Pokemon are you?
Pokemon movie bonus content?
No. I'm just going to shoot that down right now. Yeah, no, but I think that I do love the scene where he does go into the bar, and like I said,
love
he
the
makes
informant.
The informant thing too.
Mhm.
What's going on, baby?
What's going on, baby? And then he throws him in there, and he's like, "Where do you want it? What do you mean?" And then he just punches him right in the face, and then the way they walk out, "Hey, we'll be back in an hour," and just like to scare the shit out of him, but just like. I love the detail of like him going under the bar, right under like the ledge of the bar there, and just like finding all the drugs and all the pills under there.
That was apparently a real thing that Friedkin saw when he was on the job with the real guys, and they would also give him a gun and be like, "Hey, Bill, go on lookout in the back room." And the thing where he locked people up in phone booths was apparently a real thing as well. Again, is any of this real? I don't know.
It's the 70s. It's a different time.
Friedkin rocks.
It's a different time.
Yeah, it was 7. It's a different time. You have to just go with it.
Yeah, you just gotta.
You have to be cool with it.
Yeah, like he says, at least no one got hurt.
Yeah, and you know what's crazy is that like in these cat and mouse games or these cat and mouse movies or whatever, the other side of it. Like you never like they're so confident in what they're doing almost in almost every one of those scenes, even though there is some like trepidation by some of the top heads for bringing on this actor guy, which I love that the actors are like, yeah, we lost the car and and he was on shoot, and it was like even the beat cops like that doesn't make any sense. You're in Midtown and you lost it all the way over here, like I don't know how any of this makes any sense. And they're like, yeah, well, we were shooting over here and we just left it. But I just love how they're breaking apart literally the entire car, and just Popeye's exhaustion, that cut, that's like when the car is being like risen up and you see Hackman just sitting in the deconstructed seat, just absolutely like beating his head, over like, where the hell is it? Because I know it's in there.
He plays exhausted very well.
Yeah, it's so good.
Exasperated.
So good at
so
it.
good. And yeah, I just but again, the other side, the danger. Yeah, these guys are running away from him, but you never really feel like I always feel like they're always an arm length away. It's like literally the equivalent of, oh, you got to be quicker than that. Maybe like that, because they are going to get away with it. And those title cards at the end, it's like confirms everything that we've seen in the film. It's like yeah, some people are going to get sentenced, mostly the lower heads. These other guys are going to get away, or nothing's going to happen to them because their sentence is going to get.
Yeah, that was kind of the point until you get to one where it's like, this person served 5 years. Why did you include that one? It's supposed to be, it seems like the theme of all of this is these people did no time for anything that they did. And then this person actually did something. Not as much as they were originally sentenced for, but something.
Well, it's that one is the TV personality. So it's like
conspiracy.
The person who
I guess that's kind of the point. It's like the one guy who didn't really know what he was into.
But then he got in.
Yeah. You know what? I'm stupid.
Well, I wasn't. I wanted to ask you guys a question about the movie because I was watching it, and the way I first watched this movie is my dad showed me this movie.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the ultimate question.
This is a dad flick.
This is a dad flick. I have to ask: is this a top 5, like best picture winner for all dads, like easily?
Ooh.
I don't even know what that means.
So
like a dad, like there are a lot of, if you look through them. A lot of dad.
Unforgiven is right there.
I was gonna say top four for my dad. I think if I'm thinking dad movies, we have Unforgiven, The Godfather, Gladiator, and No Country for Old Men. I would put above this one, but this is definitely A tier.
Wait, say those one more time.
I would say for my dad, Gladiator,
Okay.
No Country for Old Men, The Godfather,
Uh-huh.
Unforgiven.
Okay.
Maybe this is 5. I'll have to ask,
This is,
but it's
okay.
high.
This is like, yeah, it's in the ballpark, right?
But those that I listed are all also just very like,
Those are very like, I don't think of anything pre 1970 a dad win.
oh,
I mean, I think
not
I can
mine.
do.
Well, it's the resident dad here.
Yeah, let me get in on this.
Yeah, you got to
I've
get
been
in on
getting
this.
so into World War II, y'all. I mean, it's crazy how it just happens.
Oh, like, well,
It.
not World War II, but World War One. You could do All Quiet on the Western Front. That's a good, like, old.
I'm just saying,
Old
as a
one.
dad, it's crazy. Like you have a kid.
How many
and it's like,
times?
man, I'm so interested in what was going on in the world between the years of 1938 and 1947. Crazy.
Jay, how many times have you watched Band of Brothers?
I've only gotten halfway through Band of Brothers once, and I liked it, and I quit because that's what I do with TV shows.
Well, it looks like you're going to have
But
to.
I don't
right
get
back
my
on
father's license until I finish Band of Brothers. All right, so dad, Best Picture winners. The Godfather, both of them are ahead of this.
Okay.
No Country and Unforgiven, I think, are ahead of this. Gladiator is ahead of this.
Okay.
For divorced dads, Kramer versus Kramer is ahead of this.
Yeah.
For regular for non-divorced dads, I don't know.
You know,
sorry for calling them regular dads.
You know what I would tell you?
Is a regular dad.
The Sting is definitely a dad one because of the Newman Redford factor. That's definitely there. Yeah.
Dads love Rain Man, Patton. Excuse me.
Patents.
Hello.
Yeah. Patents. Yeah. Yeah.
Coda.
God damn it.
My dad still brings up that Coda, like how bad of a Best Picture winner Coda is. Oh,
Dances with
Lord
Wolves.
of the Rings, Return of the King could also be one.
I don't think Lord of the Rings
Platoon.
is a dad one.
Dads love Lord of the Rings, I feel. No?
My dad doesn't love Lord of the Rings. This dad doesn't
neither
love
does
Lord of the
mine.
Rings. Yeah.
But I feel like
I think we just proved it. 3 dads.
Okay.
Jay, yours, and mine. They're not like putting on Lord of the Rings because they got to put on 2 other movies to get to that point.
Dads love The Great Ziegfeld.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
They love it.
Certain dads like Casablanca.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My dad likes Casablanca.
I think
it's
Casablanca
not a
is
dad
a good
movie,
film. No, it's not a dad movie.
No, it's not one. No, but yeah, that's true. But like, if you qualify a dad movie, like, you know,
Gladiator 2, what are we thinking?
Rocky.
Oh, Rocky. Rocky. Yeah.
You're saying it's going to be like Rocky and become a juggernaut?
No, Jay, we're
sorry.
saying
No,
it's
I'm
on
just
shaky ground.
adding,
No,
just
Jay,
adding
Jay,
to the
we're
dad Best Picture.
She's adding Rocky to the dad Best Picture list.
Oh, I thought you were saying Gladiator 2 is Rocky. Its existence is not looking great.
That movie, it could go either way, and mostly it's going to go the bad way because I've seen Ridley Scott's films. I know how they go.
I still haven't seen Napoleon.
Well, the problem also is that the writer of Gladiator 2 is David Scarpa, who wrote Napoleon.
Oh, well, the movie's fucked then. So,
Well, I haven't seen it, but I hear that Napoleon pretty horny.
It's
I would say the opposite of that.
Yeah.
That movie is boring.
I would not call it horny. It's like, yeah, it's just a mess.
Didn't you do the review on the website?
I did.
I'll see it one day.
A rotten from me.
You gave it a C minus?
C minus, I think.
That should have been D plus.
That's what I gave the Beekeeper. So it's on that Beekeeper level.
It's on that Beekeeper level. Yeah, y'all are being way too nice. Those have been D plus. The way that both of y'all wrote about it, I was like, these are nice grades.
I do
Minus
think
is
maybe
pretty
I
low.
should have gone D plus, but
Yeah. D plus for
anytime
David
I think
Ayer.
of D plus, I think of Disney plus,
That's true.
and so I gotta avoid it.
Yeah.
Ryan, what did you give Leave the World Behind? Was that a D plus?
D minus.
D minus.
D minus. Oh, I finally watched that.
Yeah, you for some reason were kinder to it than you should have.
I think it's incredibly effective for an hour. and then it kind of loses it.
And then it has another hour and a half.
God, that movie is long, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Watch it in a theater and it'll be different for you, because then you're like, get me out of here. You at least got to pause, right? Walk around.
I think that was a two-nighter. I think
That was a two-nighter. Yeah. Are you doing a lot of two-nighters with the baby and everything? Do you have to do a lot of two-nighters?
I mean, not a ton, but
No?
I know when I can do a two-nighter, and Leave the World Behind felt like a two-nighter.
This is an easy. This one was probably an easy one, right?
This is a nice hour 40. You kidding me?
Yeah, that was the crazy thing. I was like, oh man, this movie's gonna be like 2 hours, 2.5 hours. I'm gonna have to watch it. Nope, hour 40. Hour 43.
Like The Exorcist is long.
It's beautiful.
Too.
I don't know. The Exorcist moves.
Yeah, The Exorcist is long.
But it warrants the runtime for sure.
Friends of mine had to watch.
That's your fave Friedkin Exorcist?
I think it's perfect. I think it's maybe the best horror movie ever.
You guys will appreciate this. My friends had to watch Oppenheimer over 3 different nights because of their newborn and everything. So they divided it up by the 3 hours, and actually I think that kind of works.
You know the first movie I watched as a father?
Tree of Life?
Man on Fire.
Oh. Oh, that's a good movie. I don't know if you want to watch that the day after your baby is born.
I know, it's crazy. He was in the room with me, and we were looking at movies, and my mother-in-law was with us, and for some reason she was like, "Ooh, I love Man on Fire," and I was like, "Okay, let's watch Man on Fire."
I love that it was her suggestion.
Yeah, as we were scrolling through, it was like, "Ooh, Man on Fire! I love that movie." Huge Dakota Fanning stan. Your
in-laws have, right? You say your mother-in-law, right? And so
that's my mother-in-law, and
your
normally
father-in-law
she's kind of indifferent. My father-in-law
is a wild man.
Look, he doesn't listen to this podcast. He watches garbage. I mean, it is.
Let me pick up Jay's podcast. I like French Connection.
It is astounding. It's every time I go over there, it's whatever new Netflix garbage has come up. Last time I was with him, we watched Rebel Moon. And, maybe we'll watch Rebel Moon 2, which is called something stupid that I can't remember.
I thought that was a TV show until it was mentioned on the VFX shortlist.
For the Oscars? Yeah.
Yeah.
Rebel Moon 2, The Scargiver.
I'm really, that's stupid. It's almost as bad as when they thought that Avatar movie was going to be called The Seed Bearer.
Zack Snyder ever made a good movie?
Yeah.
Dawn of the Dead?
Dawn of the Dead's pretty good.
Yeah.
I like 300, but I haven't seen it in like a long, long time. I think maybe it might have been like a relic of its time.
Huge movie for me growing up. I mean,
I just hate the look of it. It's just so ugly.
Dark.
Like the colors. Yeah.
Yeah. I just haven't seen it in years, but I know it's.
I mean, that movie came out when I was 15.
Yeah,
of course.
Yeah, I was remember being.
Talk about that being like a dude thing. Sophia.
Yeah.
Sophia, have you seen 300?
That was a real. That was
like why I watched 300. It's a story for another time.
That was an absolute dude's rock, and also the only woman in this film is getting graphically naked.
Bro, you want to go see 300?
Dude, I don't know if I can go see 300 for the 15th time.
Oh, dude, get your puka shells and let's go watch 300.
Honestly, I feel bad in hindsight because I did buy a ticket for another film, and I wish it was able to contribute to the box office for 300.
What did you purchase? Oh, because you had to sneak in.
Yeah, sneak in.
Oh, yeah.
I remember. That's right.
I remember those days because they didn't have reserved seats yet. Guys, you remember that? Yeah. Remember you can just like.
Yeah. Oh, I've got a thing that I want to talk about.
Okay.
Okay.
Is this about the movie? Because I feel like we've gone way off.
This is not about the movie. This is about the movie going experience.
Okay. This is the last tangent, and then we're going to wrap it up.
We do need to talk about this movie.
Yeah.
So, all right. Reserve seating. I'm all for it. Very pro. However,
here we go.
If I'm in a movie
Mm-hmm.
and it's 80% empty. And maybe I reserved tickets closer to the edge because, I was like, I don't want to have to sit next to people if nobody shows up. When preferably, I'd rather be closer to the middle, in a perfect world, but I don't want to sit by anybody.
Sure.
So I get there and I move 6 seats over, right? But I'm the only person on the row. And then somebody else comes onto the row and they're like, actually, these are our seats. You shouldn't even say that. Just go sit in one of the empty seats. This pisses me off so much. The reserved seating is only meant for crowded theaters. If the theater is not crowded, just sit where there isn't anybody and shut up.
I agree.
Thank you. All right, so the French Connection.
Obviously, it's funny. My theater I go to, one of the theaters I go to here, it's predominantly like elderly people that go there.
And the best theater going experience.
When they put in reserved seating, it was like they shut down the theater. People were livid. They're like, we're not doing this. And no one does it.
They just don't go anymore?
When we went to see...
Oh, no, they just go wherever they want.
Seats. They just go wherever they want.
Oh, that rocks. When we went, just ignoring the rule. That's
ignoring
awesome.
the rule. Mm-hmm.
When we went to Stop Making Sense, was those reserved seats in New York?
I don't know if that theater doesn't do reserve.
No.
I don't think.
No, and that was great because you want to know why? We just sat where we wanted to.
I am very pro reserve seating, to be clear.
Listen, I used to
show up 20 minutes late to every movie because I don't want to watch 20
trailers.
I like it for like event movies. Like I remember we would get there for like Harry Potter and Dark Knight Rises and all those things like 3 hours ahead of time.
Remember you had to get in the line?
Yeah.
You had to get in the line, and somebody went to get the popcorn. You stood in the line, and then you had to get the coats.
I did love the midnight screenings. Oh,
man,
senior year of high school, I was a midnight screening fiend. Terminator Salvation, absolutely.
McG, are we doing
there?
Wait, when are we doing McG?
Let's do him next.
Okay, that sounds good.
Sophia, what McG movie do you want to come on for?
Oh God,
Charlie's Angels. Charlie's Angels Full Throttle.
Actually, Charlie's Angels. I would do that.
What else did he do?
You guys pick. I think for that one for me.
I don't know. I think Terminator Salvation. Honestly, Jay, it should be Terminator Salvation because then that would force her to have to watch all the Terminator movies.
I was gonna say I haven't seen that, so that would be a new one for me.
It's the one where is stellar.
Yeah, it's the Christian Bale one. Remember when he like threw the toaster at somebody and yelled at buddy on the set?
Oh, good for you.
No. And then like 2 years later, he won the Oscar and people forgot about that because he worked with another problematic person.
McG has a new movie coming out.
Wait, what?
Called The Uglies.
He's still making movies. His like his babysitter movies on Netflix are actually pretty fairly well regarded.
Is it about film Twitter? The new movie?
What?
Sorry. What?
The Uglies?
I don't know.
It's an upcoming American science fiction action fantasy
everyone
film.
on this podcast is technically a part of film Twitter.
No, we're not
Joey
a part
King
of that.
stars.
Joey King?
No,
JK?
I'm in.
As Tally Youngblood.
You know how we talked about Paul Thomas Anderson being the epitome of great names?
Mm-hmm.
Can't say it anymore. McG won. McG is a winner now. It's over. It's done.
Man, he is producing every crappy Netflix movie.
I don't care. Let's talk about the fucking French Connection. God damn it. Is there anything else you guys would like to talk about with this movie? Sophia?
Here's something tangentially related to the French Connection.
Mine is actually related to the French Connection.
I would actually like Sophia to go first.
So I love the use of location here and specifically the juxtaposition of the locations. So like when we're in France, when we're in Marseille, like the water is so blue and everything is so bright. And when we're in New York, for the most part, we're in Bed-Stuy, we're in Bushwick, we're like in this kind of gritty underbelly of New York that is not, but then later in the film, we're like, I think at 81st and Park in one scene, and we're uptown, Upper East Side. So the sections of New York the sections of New York that he's choosing to show are so purposeful and just add to the story. And I'll add that when I used to live in Bushwick, I lived 1 block away from Sal and Angie's. I recognized the street in the movie and I had to look it up, and it was right by where I used to live.
Wow.
It obviously looks very different now there, but it was right by there.
Sophia post-doxing herself.
Yeah. Not anymore.
Jay, what is your tangential thought?
You know what? I'll actually give a real thought about the film, which is
Okay,
to say that the score of this film is remarkable. It's so
Yes.
good from the jump. The opening credits of this movie are just like, oh yeah, let's go. And then immediately you go to the French Riviera and you're like, excuse me, what is it? What is happening here?
Yeah.
This is not where I thought we were going.
I wanted that
But
baguette real bad.
The score does feel like something, because the composer, whose name I don't have in front of me, but I believe this was the first big film he had ever done, and it does feel like
Don
something
Ellis.
that was a little bit ahead of its time, and something that was a tad revolutionary, which so much of this film really does. And you see that when Friedkin talks about kind of the process of doing this, and everybody's like, oh, this shot lingers a little too long, or this is over edited, or things like that. The editing is a real achievement of this movie, especially the car chase sequence, which is just cut to perfection. And it is one of those things that when you're watching it, you don't really realize it, because it just feels so kinetic and so in the moment, that it all just flows perfectly. But the cutting between the car chase and the train and all of those things, not even to mention the shots we're going from the front of the car to inside of the car to the street, showing the full car, kind of a wide shot. And that stuff, that is totally one of those things where the movie just kind of comes together in the edit. And Friedkin said it, a movie gets made 3 times. It's when you write the script, it's when you make the movie, and then it's when you edit. And he's not the first guy to ever say that, but it's front of mind because he wrote that in his book. But it really does seem to be true of this film, especially when it comes to the edit. Thinking about shooting that chase sequence, I know it wasn't quite as dangerous as it looks like it was on film, which makes it seem impossible. But that's the power of editing, is that you can do these things and create this montage that gives the impression of total continuity, which is what that sequence does. So that, and Friedkin loves the trick of showing people talking to each other but not having any dialogue playing. He does that so much in this movie, and he did a lot in some of his previous movies, but he's going to keep doing that. It's one of his signatures. It's just an interesting thing to note.
Yeah,
his filmmaking.
Tangential
to this.
Oh, here we go. I was about to make a point.
During the press tour for this film,
oh god,
he receives a package in his hotel room.
This is William Friedkin.
William Friedkin receives a package in his hotel room, and it is a book called The Exorcist, with a note from William Peter Blatty, who he had one interaction with before, and that was when William Friedkin said that his script was a piece of garbage. And William Peter Blatty remembered that, and after the success of this movie, he said, I would love for you to make this movie if you want to. I have final director approval. Read it and let me know what you think. And Friedkin read it and thought it was amazing. And who knows what came of that, but that's just a random anecdote about his career.
Don Ellis.
Make sure that you guys make sure you watch before the Exorcist episode, Leap of Faith, that documentary. It's just Friedkin talking about the Exorcist for 90 minutes, and it's a joyous experience.
Have you all ever seen The Devil and Father Amorth?
No.
His documentary he did about an actual exorcist?
No.
It stinks. It's so bad.
I will say this though about Friedkin.
He did that like
he did make that comment
10 years
right.
ago.
He made that comment before he passed about who was he talking with, but essentially that the news that David Gordon Green was going to make this movie, and he was essentially like, I hope I don't have to live to see that shit. And then sadly he passed. But then now,
congratulations, William.
Who's had the last laugh is William Friedkin.
It would have killed him anyway.
Well, what I was going to say was the movie's terrible.
How many good Exorcist movies have there been?
One. In my opinion. I know that there are some people that love Extra 3. Yeah,
I've only seen one. I can't speak to it, but apparently they're not supposed to be very good.
2's
horrific.
Horrific.
So bad.
The worst movie.
Is 3 the one that was directed by William Peter Blatty?
I think so. Yes. But no, is that new movie, which cost Paramount like a crap ton of money for the rights for, and then
I believe $400 million for the trilogy.
And then they
all in.
Yeah. And then the movie tanked because it was bad. And now they fire David Gordon Green and have to find somebody else to direct it. Those other 2 movies. It's what wild times we live in. If somewhere, wherever William Friedkin's spirit is at, he is laughing his fucking ass off.
Well, let me say something.
Oh no.
Offensive. William Friedkin's corpse can make a better movie than The Exorcist Believer. That is
true. It technically did. He had the K Mutiny Court Martial.
It's so bad. Ooh, offensive.
Yeah. But you were mentioning the score, Jay. Don Ellis. I kept trying to get this point out.
Sorry, I cut you off.
No, it's fine. I'm the only one that cuts people off around here. Do you understand? But anyway.
And one more thing.
To be clear, Don Ellis did the score for The French Connection. He also did the score for a movie called The Seven Ups. The Seven Ups was made by Philip D'Antoni, and he was also the producer on Bullitt and The French Connection. Yes. Would you guys like to know what the sort of the what The Seven Ups is about? Would you like to know what it is? Because it sounds just like Bullitt and it sounds just like The French Connection.
No, it's like the California Raisins, but with 7-Up.
Yeah, no, Jay, it's actually about a crusading policeman who is the leader of the 7-Ups, a squad of plainclothes officers who use dirty, unorthodox tactics to basically get people. It's something to do with prisons now. It's a bunch of different things. Basically, it is a ripoff of Bullitt and a ripoff of The French Connection, and it stars.
The French Connection came out.
No, because the 7-Ups came out in 1973.
Okay.
And it is starring Roy Schneider as the leader of the 7-Ups.
Look, you can't win them all.
They were all essentially making these movies. Only one of them became a giant hit that won Best Picture. Is what
that was the whole pitch of this movie was, hey, I have this true crime book. Also, car chase. Added that part in. What do you guys think of that?
Well, that's the thing. Is like a movie like The 7-Ups. It was made for $2.5 million, and it made only $6 million at the box.
Scheider's asking price after this. Come on.
I mean, come on. But what the point is that it goes to, I even think something like this year. When somebody makes one thing one time, that does not mean the answer is to continue to make that product, because audiences are kind of smart and they realize, hey, that's just like that other thing. So I'm just saying that anybody listening that has producing power in Hollywood that potentially sees Barbie and thinks maybe we should continue to do that. Maybe there's a reason why that was so great. Just like maybe there was a reason why
this thing locked and loaded 4 hours ago.
I'm just saying. Maybe there was a reason why this worked.
French Connection 2, directed by John Frankenheimer, sounds kind of awesome on paper.
It does.
Honestly, seen it, but
yeah.
Honestly, it does. Maybe we'll do.
I'll tell you what. One thing I love about Popeye is that he's sort of like Columbo, where he just acts on hunch. He just knows.
Is Columbo racist?
One more thing. That's kind of Popeye's energy, and I love that.
Jay, is Columbo racist?
Well, this is something that Twitter has been talking about.
You know what?
Today.
You know what, Jay?
I don't want to get into the.
I don't want to get into it. I think that's another episode for itself. Sophia's got thoughts. I have thoughts. I don't want to talk about that. That's
My
We're gonna
thoughts
save
on
that for our
Columbo all
Columbo
revolve
series.
around Faye Dunaway. So
listen. We already had a controversial
Faye
episode with
Dunaway.
licorice pizza.
How much
We don't
time
need to
you
have
got?
any more with Columbo racism talks. Okay. All right. You guys are going down some rabbit
And
holes.
one more thing.
All right. Anything else you guys want to talk about? Anything you want to mention, French Connection wise?
I would like to talk about the Oscars.
Okay. Well, I can do that, Jay. Because you want to know why? Before we get out of here, we're going to test your award season knowledge based on the film we just reviewed, which is The French Connection, in a segment we like to call It's an Honor to Get Nominated. Jay, we've kind of spoiled a little bit this movie and maybe a couple wins, so I'm going to give you that. But Jay, how many Oscars was The French Connection nominated for? And what was it nominated for?
All right. So you're not going to believe this, but William Friedkin mentioned all of this. He patted himself on the back a little bit.
Son of a bitch. Okay.
In his memoir.
God damn it, freaking.
So I'm going to see if I can name all of them.
You didn't write it down.
I didn't write them down.
Okay.
I read them. So let's see if I can do it. All right. So Best Picture, win. Best Director, win. Best Actor, win. Adapted Screenplay, win. Editing, win.
Correct. That's 5.
Scheider nomination, no win.
Correct.
I think there's more, but I can't remember.
I'll give you this. There is more. That's all I'm going to give you.
Sound, no win.
Correct.
I think it won 6.
Did it?
Am I forgetting anything big?
You always forget this one.
This is the one I always forget.
This is the one I'm like, why do you always forget this?
Achilles heel.
Yeah. If somebody won
it's a
director,
very important category.
what do they usually get nominated for if they're nominated for director?
All right. So, okay, let me just go through it one more time. Picture, director, actor, screenplay, editing.
Yeah.
And then a thing that directors normally get nominated for.
Well, not directors. The film usually gets nominated for this, and it usually correlates with a best director nomination as well.
It usually correlates with the best director nomination.
Yeah, like you usually get director, editing, this.
See, you're getting into the lore now.
Yeah. Like, let's just say this. Let's just use hypothetical. If Christopher Nolan got nominated for Oppenheimer, what would you be shocked on a craft level that it didn't get nominated alongside it?
Cinematography?
There you go, Jay.
Was this nominated for cinematography?
It was, and it was nominated for 8.
It didn't win that, though.
It did not win that, though.
Okay.
You always get that. You always get stuck on the cinematography win.
And I love cinematography.
Or nominees. I know you do. That's like your thing.
I love it.
You're Mr. Visuals.
I mean, this movie does look good. It looks.
It lost to.
Let me rephrase that. It looks appropriate.
Yes. I was going to say.
Yes.
Great might be, but for what it is, you bet.
Doesn't exactly look like Barry Lyndon, but that's the point.
It lost to Fiddler on the Roof for cinematography.
Huh.
I mean,
nominees were Fiddler on the Roof, French Connection, The Last Picture Show, Nicholas and Alexandra, and Summer of 42.
Gotta be honest, never seen Fiddler on the Roof. Isn't that movie like 3 hours long?
Yeah, it was one of those two VHSs. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a pass for me.
You know what that is, Sophia. If you saw 2 VHSs, you know you were in for a weekend of just that movie alone. At the
Titanic, double VHS, Sound of Music,
Titanic
double
is a
VHS.
classic double VHS.
Godfather 2, double VHS.
Oh, I love The Godfather.
Sound of Music.
Yeah.
Should we talk about The Godfather Part 2? Sophia, are you Godfather 1 or 2?
She's 2.
This is such a complicated question because I think The Godfather is the best Picture winner ever, but
Correct.
But The Godfather 2 also won Best Picture.
I know, but I personally prefer Part 2. Like Part 2 is just
this is the coward's move.
I know.
separating best from favorite. That's the coward's move.
I just think it's one all the way. I just think it's one all I
think
fine
it's
with
two,
that.
and I think that's all I think. It's two.
Two
Yeah,
is
but
just,
G, if
two
you
is
don't-
a Greek tragedy. It's perfect. I mean, one is perfect too. It's just, I don't know. I love them both. I don't want to pick.
I could get rid of the De Niro stuff. I don't need that. That's
It has the
nuts.
same structure as Mamma Mia, Here We Go Again.
Correct.
That is true.
And they're both equally in the Smithsonian, right?
I can say that
Yes.
based on I can say that based on the 15 minutes of Mamma Mia, Here We Go Again that I did make it through.
Wait, Jay, you only seen 15 minutes of Mamma Mia, Here We Go Again?
It's so good.
Mr.
Correct.
Completist?
Yeah, it's very rare that I quit something in the middle, but it was mostly my wife who was like, I don't
I'm
think
not
I can
vibing
take
with
this.
No.
Oh.
I'll get to it one day.
You'll get to it when they make the third one. 'Cause you know
Yeah,
they're gonna
we'll do
make
a
the
Mamma
third
Mia
one.
series.
God damn it, no. I just remember seeing the first one and being like, well, okay, we don't have to deal with this again. And then literally fucking
Here we
the
go
sequel
again.
came out and I went, well, here we go again.
Here it is.
Third one is, I mean, those Mamma Mia movies are no different than the Adam Sandler movies. They're just all an excuse for them to go on vacation together.
My
So
Mamma Mia.
I get it. I
My
get it.
Mamma Mia is book club. Because
I
I
love-
love book club.
Yeah.
I love book club.
Did you,
I
Jay?
love book club.
Jay, did you love the new book club?
No, book club 2 it doesn't hold a candle to book club 1. Book club the next chapter, excuse me.
Yeah, the next chapter. Yeah, that's right.
But I mean, it's still a rollicking good time. I mean,
Jay,
let's
I
be
never
honest.
got your thoughts on 80 for Brady.
I will never watch that movie.
Why is that, Jay?
Just deeply entrenched trauma.
Mhm. Jay is a Atlanta Hawks, or I'm sorry, well, he is an Atlanta Hawks fan, but he's also an Atlanta Falcons fan, and that's
It's a
what
tough existence.
that's the Super Bowl that they based that movie on, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Is it based on
That
a?
is-
It's not
that
based
is
on a true
my-
story.
that
is
is
it?
my
It's
It
just
is
like-
based on a true story.
Is it really based on a true story? Like that really
It
happened?
sure is. It sure is.
What do you guys think about Taylor Swift's appearances recently on the NFL broadcast?
I think that
Here we go again.
Her jacket looked freaking sweet. I'll say that.
It was a nice jacket, though. I will say,
Look, she was out there in 0-degree weather
She was in a
supporting
box.
the
To-
love of
to-
her life.
to hell though with the NFL. Like the only reason they played that game, they had no business playing that game. It was terrible weather, and so that we can all get it on Peacock, right, for $5.99. So that
As an Xfinity subscriber, I do have a built-in subscription to Peacock.
but
So
like I had my dad text me like, how do I get Peacock? Do I already have Peacock? I'm like, no, you're just not going to watch the game. And I think a lot of that has to do with one, Patrick Mahomes and his popularity and them tapping into that. But I do also think that it is also trying to tap into the Taylor Swift fandom that want to watch that game and want to see her show up every other play that Travis is there. And they're trying to exploit it. And it's terrible.
all right, enough. Would you have given French Connection the Best Picture Oscar?
Of the lineup, yes.
What about of the year?
No. Because McCabe and Miss Miller came out that year.
Yep.
Clute came out that year. Which, if you want to hear my
Love
thoughts
Clute.
on the best actress race of 1971.
I mean, look, I love Straw Dogs.
Hey, I'm trying to plug myself here. Please
Dude,
hold.
Let's rephrase that one.
What? I'm trying to plug myself from a different show.
I'm trying to plug my work. Let's say that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, trying to plug my work here.
Okay.
All right.
We can go with that.
It's a big deal. I was on an episode of Kevin Jacobs' podcast, and I talked about this exact best actress race. You jerks. And
I didn't do anything.
no, you laughed, and that's enabling him.
I'm just here. It's past my bedtime.
I don't know if you understood what we were laughing at, but you can continue.
Anyway, you know what?
I was on Kevin Jacobson's podcast too, but I'm behind the paywall, baby.
Yeah, you were behind the paywall. I was on a regular episode. No,
Don't
you
say
talked
me.
about John Frankenheimer, didn't you?
I'm supposed to be. I'm the catnip behind the paywall.
Didn't you talk about Frankenheimer?
Yes.
Yeah, seconds.
Yes.
Well, there you go.
Great film.
Great film. Wonderful film. Y'all are mean. I would. Would you give Hackman the Oscar? Anyone?
No, I wouldn't. I would probably give it to Malcolm McDowell for Clockwork Orange.
Oh, you would nominate him. He had to get nominated first.
Oh,
Sophia,
of the lineup?
Yeah. Sophia, you big Clockwork Orange person? No?
I don't like it at all. Hot take. It's one of my least favorite Kubricks.
That's not even
I find
a hot
it like kind
take.
of unbearable.
It's just kind of like
it's the take.
That's a love it or hate it kind of
yeah.
movie.
It really is.
Like, it was one of those where I just remember like people telling me growing up, like, oh, you have to watch A Clockwork Orange, you have to watch this movie, you have to watch it, and then watching it, I was just no.
It does have a little bit of that Fight Club, this was deep when I was 17 kind of energy, but also I think it sustains, and it's just I watched that movie and I'm just like, dudes rock.
I haven't seen it in a long time, and I watched it at one time, and I'm good.
I think it's great. I mean, I think it's a pretty.
It's not a Kubrick
fantastic film.
Back to, you know.
I would give it to Hackman.
It's like Stanley Kubrick's 9th best movie.
Yeah, which is still not like a terrible movie.
It means it's great.
Well, I mean, it doesn't have to mean that it's great.
I think it's great.
I really like the acting quartet this year, I'll say.
Can I tell you something? I'm willing to say
again, I'll allow it.
Maybe I'm going to get in trouble here.
Okay.
I don't get the big deal about the Last Picture Show. I'm not. I think it's.
Can I say something even more?
I think it's a little. You never seen it.
Never seen it.
Never seen it. Okay.
Can I say something more controversial?
What?
Bogdanovich, not a director for me. I think he kind of riffs on everyone else.
I think not my guy either. And that one's
speaking ill of the dead.
That one's well. Yeah. I feel like his movie's I like Targets, but I don't like Last Picture Show for some reason.
You know, it's a good movie from this year, A New Leaf. I quite like that movie.
Oh, I like A New Leaf.
A New Leaf.
Elaine May just rocking and rolling.
I think the Last Picture Show is really beautiful, but I like Cloris Leachman's win. I do like that performance, but it's not one I'll probably watch again.
No,
it's one of those like I've seen it, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
You know what's another good movie from this year?
Which one?
Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Okay.
Maybe I'd give Best Actor to Gene Wilder.
You know what? Actually, that's a really good pick. Until he got one-upped by Timothée Chalamet.
Wait.
Until Timothée Chalamet dunked on Gene Wilder.
Wait, are you guys talking about chocolate?
In your pocket.
In your pocket.
No, there's chocolate. And there's chocolate. Interesting. Thank you, Timothy.
Thank you, Tim.
That movie stinks on ice.
The problem is that I didn't have a bad time when I watched it. And then Jay has done nothing but
I wanted to eat some chocolate with a cyanide pill inside of it.
Okay. All right. And I think you're not a Paul King guy either.
Well, I've turned on Paddington
big time.
Hard.
Yeah.
I rewatched that and was just like,
Jay, that's a good movie. Come on, you can't.
No, it is. I'm good with it now.
Turn towards the right.
I used to be like whatever, and now I'm like,
okay. So you're like, this is special.
I'm big into it. I watched that with my wife, and one of the few times she was like 5 stars, masterpiece. And I was like, you know what? I'm not quite there, but it's pretty great.
And then she probably looked at you and said, put it on Letterboxd.
And then we watched Wonka, and she said,
why?
I don't know that I want to watch movies anymore.
With you or just in general?
Just in general. She was like, movies, I don't know about these things.
Sophia, pro or
24 frames a second? Pass.
Pro or con Paddington?
Pro Paddington.
Okay.
Wonka, I didn't have a bad time while I was watching it. There were certain things that I didn't like in it, but like it wasn't as bad as I was expecting it to be at all.
Yeah, there's certain things I don't like about it, like the songs, Timothée Chalamet,
Olivia Colman.
Yeah, it's bad when you make Coleman bad.
The way that it looks.
She's very Trunchbull.
Yeah.
Like it's
very
It was more Matilda vibe, than it was. Did
y'all watch the Matilda musical?
No.
No, I didn't.
I've heard it's good.
I've heard that too.
Mm-hmm.
No, I mean, Wonka is
Matilda.
what it
That's a
is.
very important movie of our childhood.
I
Yeah.
loved Matilda.
I'm worried about
Directed by Danny DeVito.
I'm worried about Paddington 3.
They're going to Peru.
Yeah, I'm just worried about it. Sally Hawkins isn't coming back.
Paul King isn't directing either.
Paul King isn't directing
he was
or
busy
writing
with
it.
Wonka, thank God.
Yeah, and now he's going to do that Fred Astaire movie with Spider-Man.
Thank
yeah.
God. Tommy Holland.
He's
So
coming
much
in.
charisma in that one.
So many tall
It's
guys are just making
unbelievable.
movies.
I see that guy and I just levitate.
I'm sorry, short kings. Short Paul Kings. There you go.
God, he's so lucky he's shorter than Robert Downey Jr. I mean, that has made him millions of dollars.
It's true. Because he can be like, I'm a kid. And it's like, no, you're not. You're 45 years old. Go
No,
now.
it's more like Robert Downey Jr. saying, Spider-Man's got to be shorter than me.
Yeah, because I'm the big star. There you go.
Tom Cruise has finally embraced being short, which is cool.
Yeah. What do you think?
And I can't wait for him and Zaslav to work together.
I can't wait for him to be like the surprise in Argyle. That's going to be great.
Wait, is that a rumor?
That's a rumor out there. Yeah.
Really? I thought
Yeah.
the surprise was just something related to the cat.
No, isn't like you're going to find like in the trailer, if you watch it, like there's supposed to be like, you want to meet the real Agent Argyle. And like, it's supposed to be this big twisty reveal. And I'm like, yeah, it's probably J.K. Rowling.
What if it's Sam Worthington?
You know, you mean like Sam Worthington from like, God, now I'm blanking on what movie.
The
From
Ledge.
Avatar?
Yeah, okay, from Terminator
The
Salvation. From Terminator Salvation.
He was in Terminator Salvation, yes.
Yeah, him and Jai Courtney.
What if it was like Ryan Reynolds? I would be so angry.
Oh, that
But
would
he
be
would fit.
awesome.
God, it would be something so.
I
annoying.
love Ryan Reynolds.
Actually, I wanted to be Robbie Coltrane.
He's on such a cool path.
Is that what his name is? That played John Lennon in Yesterday. That's what I wanted to be. I wanted to be John Lennon from Yesterday.
What if it was
Remember that?
Albert Einstein from Oppenheimer?
Oh, Tom Conti?
Tom Conti?
Yeah.
Hell yeah! I wish it was Tom Conti. Tom Conti should
I
be
wish
in
it was
everything.
Josh Hartnett.
Oh, yeah. You know who I was
Josh
thinking
Hartnett is doing the Shyamalan movie.
Is he doing? He's doing the Shyamalan movie.
He's in the next Shyamalan movie.
Oh, well, that'll be interesting. I'm a little out on M. Night right now. But I'm usually the big defender of him.
I didn't love Knock at the
Knock at the
Cabin.
Cabin.
But
But old
is gold, baby.
old is gold. That movie rules. That movie slaps.
That movie
Sorry,
rules.
Sophia. It's just
Yeah.
it just
I'll
is
never
what it
watch
is.
Old again.
No, why? Why wouldn't you want to watch a great movie?
I can't even tell you how angry that ending made me.
Yeah,
Old-
I didn't love the ending, but God, there's some
Is-
There's
genuinely
good body
audacious
horror in it, though.
filmmaking
Yeah.
in that
Yeah.
movie.
That's just a giant swing, and I appreciate
Mhm.
that. And then Knock at the Cabin's like,
Beach
I'm
that
gonna
makes you
go.
old. Excuse me, coral that makes you old.
Yeah, and then like the Knock at the Cabin, just disappointing.
Yeah,
I thought it was
whatever.
I thought he was gonna inject himself more into that film, and then it just never.
He should have played Jonathan Groff.
Wait, was he in the film? Because usually he's in all of his films.
Was he
He's
near
very
the- in
Hitchcock.
the end?
He's not in all of them. The best one was when he played the greatest storyteller of all time in Lady in the Water.
Yeah.
That was so cool. That was such a cool guy thing of him to do.
Would you guys seriously give this out of the lineup Best Picture? Back to French Connection for a half a sec.
I would.
Yeah. I
Out
would
of these 5, I would. for
Kind
sure.
of a weak year.
It's
not
kind
great.
of an it's like very indicative of the changing tide in
Yeah.
Hollywood. Like we're still clinging to like, okay, we have Nicholas and Alexandra.
God, what a bad movie that is.
That feels very like a
Fucking hated
60s.
that movie.
I remember, Ryan, when you were doing Kevin's show, and I looked at your list and I was like, oh no, you have to watch Nicholas and Alexandra and Mary Queen of Scots.
Did you
Mary Queen of Scots actually not as bad as the new version that came out.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah, that's the Saoirse Ronan, Margot Robbie crappy movie that was. Yeah, like the original.
Vanessa
that
Redgrave and Glenda Jackson.
Yeah,
are better
those are
than
like
Saoirse
two-
and Margot Robbie anyway.
No shit. Yes.
Is that who I'm Sorry Miss Jackson is about?
Yes, it's about Glenda Jackson.
That's cool. Did The Graduate win Best Picture?
No, but
No.
that's not this year.
It didn't. No, I'm just wondering. I'm just thinking about New Hollywood. Is Mike Nichols New Hollywood?
Yeah.
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 Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think about the legitimization of New Hollywood.
Yeah, because him and like Elaine May make.
And I guess this was kind of it.
Yeah.
What do you guys think of
That, like-
Ishtar?
Good movie. No,
I
you're
think-
you're just like not talking about this year.
I think 80% of Ishtar is truly a masterpiece.
This is what happens when we go off for.
And then 20% of it is just mediocre.
Sophia.
But
I know. We're really going there this week.
Yeah, we need. This week's been rough.
I actually haven't seen Ishtar. Fun fact.
No?
oh, Ishtar's
Haven't
great.
seen it.
Ishtar's great.
But
I'll add it to my list.
Fiddler is fine. Clockwork Orange, Last Picture. Yeah, it's by default. It's French Connection. So, but I do love Clute.
Mm-hmm.
I love McCabe, and I wish those were here. So those movies are
Big year for Scheider.
big year, big year. This and Clute. Yeah, he's in Clute.
Mhm.
He's great. Donald Sutherland, by the way. Where's the nomination? Where's the
number
nomination?
one man. Of the
Where's the
70s.
nomination for Ordinary People? Hello, folks. Like it's
Donald Sutherland,
now.
who played President Snow.
Oh, here we go.
It's like, which role are you going to choose?
Where are you
I'm
going
scared.
now?
I just watched The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes.
Save your recommendation for a minute.
And let me tell you, that movie stinks.
Really?
That movie stinks.
Really? Because a lot of people have been praising it.
Yeah, a lot of dummies.
Oh my God. Okay. We gotta stop now. You're going off the rails. Sophia, thank you so much for coming on the wildest episode again that we've done a lot of wild episodes, but this is the most unhinged maybe.
French Connection is great, to be
Thank
clear.
you very much. Yeah, we're not asking you yet. I'm trying to get Sophia out of here. Can you tell everybody where they can find you and all your work?
Yeah, of course. Thank you guys for having me. This was a lot of fun, as always, even though we went on, I think, more tangents than usual. But The French Connection, great movie. You can find me on Twitter at Sophia_Sim, Letterboxd, same handle, just without the underscore. And you can find my podcast, Oscar Wilde. We release episodes every Friday, and then you can also find additional podcasting and reviews and interviews at AwardsWatch.
I laughed only because Jay made like I don't know if we made that many tangents face. While you were talking.
It might have been a record.
It might have been. Yeah,
That's a good question.
We're closing in on 30 episodes. What's been the most tangent filled so far?
Am I the common denominator?
This is up there. The Akon City one is also up there.
Yeah.
I can't even remember what movie that was from. I'd have to go back and look. The Wonderstruck episode had some tangents.
I'll tell you what, the There'll Be Blood one with Josh, that was pretty tangent filled. That was a long one.
Yeah, that was a fun app.
And Josh was in on it.
I love a tangent.
Yeah. Love it. Yeah, no shit. You love a tangent. They're going to put that on your tombstone. Jay Ledbetter lies here. Loves a tangent. Jay, where can we find you and all your work?
Just wrote a review for The Beekeeper on AwardsWatch. Solid C-.
Pretty proud of that, aren't you, buddy?
Man, I wrote the hell out of that one.
You're going to get the pull quote this year?
That's the one they're going to remember me for.
I knew it.
The Beekeeper. So any writing I do, you can see on AwardsWatch. Any tweets I make, you can find it on Twitter at Mr. J Ledbetter. And for my movie recommendation of the week, I'll tell you one of my sort of movie New Year's resolutions this year has been to watch more 90s action movies. I'm trying to, I don't know why.
Is that a blind spot area for you?
Not really. I mean, there's some where I'm kind of digging a little deeper. I'm digging a little deeper.
All right.
And so a film I watched last week. Have you ever seen Passenger 57?
Yeah, isn't that with is that Bruce Willis?
No, Wesley Snipes.
Wesley Snipes.
Die Hard on a Plane.
Die Hard on a Plane. That's right. Yeah.
And it's pretty good. I enjoyed it. Wesley Snipes, real athlete, good action star. A film that really
Bad at
has,
tax season.
interestingly, has like some racially charged stuff that I think is really interesting.
Yeah.
And also one of the great action catchphrases of all time,
Which is
when Wesley Snipes is threatening a guy and he says, "Always bet on black."
there you go. Yeah, and that's what got him in
And then it
trouble with
zooms
the
in on his
IRS.
face really hard.
Yeah. Just remember to file early, everybody out there. You don't want to forget. Including you, Wesley. No, it's a good movie. I'll give you that, Jay. It's a good one.
It's good.
You can find all my work at awardswatch.com, Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd. Ryan McQuade77 is the handle. If you like podcasts, Awards Watch Podcast, you can see that main show every Monday, and along with this show every Thursday. iTunes, Spotify, 5-star reviews, we greatly appreciate it. Website, go sign up for the newsletter. It gets all the great stuff that we do on the website all in one place, sent to you every single week. Movie recommendation of the week. I've been really low on trying to on watching movies. I mean, like I said, I watched Oppenheimer in front of a live orchestra, but I don't think many people are going to be able to do that. You know what I watched? Wouldn't say it's a.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I did. You know what I watched? I messaged Sophia about this. Maybe just like the greatest rom-com of all time, and definitely the best New Year's movie of all time. But I was watching, and I watched it on a plane. Perfect plane movie. When Harry Met Sally. Just a great movie. Got to say, Jay, I think at a certain point we got to do the run of Rob Reiner. Like I feel like,
but
we
just
have
the 5.
No, it's like 7 films.
He had a run for sure.
He had a big old run.
It is one of the best runs ever.
When you put it in context of his larger career, it's just, you just think,
where did it go wrong?
So what happened?
Yeah, and I think it'd be a good study. I think
it's a great run.
It's a really great.
And then there's that one in there that I can never remember the name of.
Yeah, there's one in like the middle that's like not that great, but
it kind of breaks up the run of 6 all-timers.
You're just kind of like, let's not think about it. Let's not talk about that.
Yeah.
It's The Sure Thing.
There you go. The sure
thing.
Well, sure thing.
Sophia will be on for The Sure Thing.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, When Harry Met Sally, great movie. Absolutely love it.
It's a good film.
I was just the sweater game that Billy Crystal has going on in the movie. Iconic.
It's a great fall movie.
Jay, I had to ask Sophia this question. I'll ask you this. Mm-hmm. Who is hotter? Is it Billy Crystal in that movie or Simu Liu in anything?
I mean, as far as exuding desirability, Billy Crystal is definitely putting the work in. Simu Liu, unfortunately, went to the doctor, have an intense allergy to Simu Liu.
Okay.
So when spring comes around, I'll have to take allergy medicine for Simu Liu, and maybe eventually I'll be back on his side. But for now, I cannot be in the presence of Simu Liu without getting hives.
Okay. Yeah. I knew when he was at the Golden Globes and I saw him. I'm like,
I have a Simu Liu EpiPen.
There you go.
Yeah.
In case of emergency.
Doesn't do it for me.
Shouldn't do it for anyone.
Nothing going on up here.
No. Yes. It's just a bunch of rocks clanging together up there. That's for sure.
What's the best rom-com?
I think it's When Harry Met Sally. Mm-hmm. It's pretty, yeah. I know it's pretty basic, but it's probably that.
What's the new one with Sydney Sweeney and Glenn Powell?
Anything But You?
Oh,
that's my pick.
I haven't seen it. Anyone But You. Not anything.
Anyone but you. Glenn Powell looks great in it. He's a movie star.
Set It Up was great.
Mm-hmm.
I did like.
I can't wait for you guys to see it.
What happened
to her? Who? Zoe Deutsch?
Yeah.
Well, not all Nepo babies can. Some fly too close to the sun.
She was in that movie Buffaloed. You see that?
Yeah, remember that one? Did you ever see that one, Sophia?
How many Oscars did that one win?
I didn't.
Not that many, sadly. I think it won a grand old 0.
Oh, man. All right, so back to The French Connection.
No, we're trying to get we're trying to get out of here. We're trying to get out of here. Next week's show, we will be back. Be a very serious show. It's actually going to be our first horror movie that we've ever talked about on Director Watch. We're going to talk about a pretty big film, The Exorcist. Heard of it?
Guestless. Can't believe we're guestless for that.
Yeah, we're guestless a little bit as of
We
right
had a
now.
cancellation.
No.
Good grief.
No.
An understandable cancellation.
No.
We won't name names.
No, stop it.
Everybody turned the podcast off 15 minutes ago.
We will be back next week to talk about The Exorcist. So until then, thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you all next time.